Hello everybody, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
And we are here with our July 2021 Block of the Month. And this beautiful block is one that Shelley has spent a lot of time figuring out, a lot of calculating just to make it easier for you. So, before we get into that, let's talk about just the general fabrics everyone needs each month for Block of the Month.
Okay, just like we've done in the last few years, you need a focus fabric.
Which is this, it's very little on this block, this speckly one. It's up here bigger, it's this speckly one.
Okay, a coordinating fabric.
Which in my block is this green.
And then two neutrals. You pick what they are, probably a light and a dark would be best.
Yeah, and I have this gray and the white. And by the way, the coordinating fabric, it's supposed to coordinate obviously with your neutrals, but also with your focus fabric.
Right.
Okay. So, before we even talk about sizes or anything like that, I wanted to have a quick little discussion on this block. Shelley's like, you're going out of order, but okay.
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay, about color placement in this block. So, obviously this year for Block of the Month, you guys are making these quilts for yourselves. And so you need to do what pleases you. And this block here is an example of making this four-pointed star block in a very symmetrical manner. As you can see, I echoed the fabrics on each side in the same order, and it looks beautiful. But it also looks beautiful if you do it this way, where the fabrics are randomly arranged on either side of it.
Right.
And all that we want you to do in the whole block, which is, you're going to make triangles here. You have to make 4 of them. So somewhere in it, we want the 4 fabrics. The coordinating fabric, focus, and 2 neutrals.
Right.
Now, these blocks up here on the wall are actually my blocks that I'm going to be using in our round robin quilt for this year, which uses, this month in July we have to make 4 blocks. And in my round robin, I have 2 coordinating fabrics that I'm using all year. It's this lighter blue and green. And I decided that with my round robin, I wanted to use them both in each block. So I did this center piece, I did 2 of each color, and then I used my other fabrics on either side of it. But we aren't even like saying you have to use two of each color on either side of them. You can choose how you want it to look, and you'll see, because the block I'm going to build today while we're demoing this, I'm choosing another look, which I'm hoping will work. We'll see. I'm trying to make it look kind of like, kind of pop out in a 3D kind of way. We'll see. We'll see if it works. I'm using it with my blue and my gray, and it's possible it'd work better with 2 colors of blue, more like a shadow and an unshadowed. But we'll see. We'll see. So, so definitely, please, we say this every month, go get a copy of the instructions off of the Guild website, the Valley of the Mist Quilt Guild website.
I would say you need probably both of these things this year, the video and the written instructions to help you.
Yeah, and
it's
the video,
not hard, but it's hard to explain.
Right, and in the video we're going to kind of go over in a little more detail some of the things to help make this block easy. And for once, we actually have a diagram of the block.
Because it's like, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to make 4 of these triangles and then sew them together to make a block. So
when Shelley's talking about the fabrics you need, we're going to talk about pieces 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they have a size,
right,
a rough size. And we are making this, other than piece 1, which we'll talk about, which is kind of an exact size. The others, it builds it a little bit, not a lot, a little bit big so that you have room to trim it at the end.
Right.
Okay, so.
Should we talk about fabric or ruler?
No, let's talk about the fabric, about the pieces first, about the size of the pieces.
Okay.
So piece one.
Okay. Which will be, you need 4 3-inch by 6.5-inch rectangles. Okay, so that's
and that's going to become this diamond in the center.
right.
Okay.
Then pieces 2, 3, and 4. Now you're going to need 8 of each fabric.
8 of each piece.
Each piece. Yeah, because the piece is the length. Each piece for a block. Okay.
So yeah, so you can decide how many you want of each fabric in the block, but you need 8 of piece 2, 8 of piece 3, 8 of piece 4.
Right. Okay. So on average, each piece should be 2 3/4 inches wide, but it can vary between 2.5 and 3 1/4.
As you can see up here, see the pieces are different widths, and so it's good for using up scraps if you have them. If not,
Right.
just average. You can make all the widths 2 3/4.
And it should be enough. It should work.
It should
fine.
work, exactly.
Yeah, with that, a little extra.
Right.
So
Oh, okay, a little extra. Okay.
a little bit. And okay, so the lengths of each of fabric number 2 should be 6 inches. And the length of fabric number 3 should be 4.5 inches. And I should say piece, not fabric. Piece number 4 should be 3 inches.
So if you are varying the widths of your fabrics, you know, like say you have a 3-inch piece, a 2.5. Oh, and there is she wants you to keep the pieces between, did you say that 2.5 and 3 1/4?
Right.
Okay. So say you've got a 2.5-inch piece and a 3-inch piece, and you want to know what should the width of that piece, the third piece on that side be. The total of the 3 fabrics that make 2, 3, and 4 on each side of the diamond need to be how wide?
8 1/4 inches. This is before you've sewn them
Before
together.
you sew them. So just laying next to each other, you need 8 1/4 inches wide.
Right.
And then when you sew them together and you lose your 1/2 inch on the seam, you'll still be wide enough.
Right.
Okay, so just Shelley, I know this is really for a later reference, but show them this is almost a whole triangle before trimming put together.
Right.
She's got one more piece she needs to add onto that one, so you can see.
Here.
So you can see how she's just, staggering these, and we're going to talk about that. So don't worry, don't get ahead. Okay, so Shelley discovered the best guide for seeing if your triangle that you're making is big enough is using a square up ruler, a larger square up ruler. Now, we know most of you, because we make 12.5-inch blocks for our block of the month, have a 12.5-inch ruler. So if you want to use, if you don't have a lot of square ups and you don't want to go buy another one, then the 12.5-inch ruler works fine. If you take it and turn it on its side, and right here, this is the diagonal mark through my ruler that came built into the ruler. And I just took a piece of tape and I'm looking at this straight edge up here, not this torn edge on the bottom. I tried to make it smaller so I could see more. But I measured 2 1/4 inches up from that diagonal, and I placed that along there. So it's 2 1/4 inches above the diagonal all the way along. And this is roughly how big that, so Shelley, can you put your triangle behind this and let's see. Oh, so you can see if we put the diamond up in the corner, it's filling in that part. She's got a little extra, but not a lot.
Right.
Okay, so if you have other rulers, the interesting thing is that the ruler that works even better is if you have a 9.5-inch square up ruler. And that mark that we had you make on there is the same mark as is across the diagonal of a 9.5 inch square.
Right.
So if you have I'm not saying go buy one, just if you have one, this area above the center line on a 9.5 inch square up is the area that you need. Right?
Right.
Okay.
And we'll talk about
Yeah, we're going to
how we're going to be using this.
Yeah, next, not in this first step. Okay, so Shelley's first invention on this was, how do we get that diamond?
Yeah, an easy way to get the diamond.
Right. So you do have to trim off a little bit of fabric. So Shelley, tell us what you do. And I'm going to demo it over here I'll try to reach around and demo it.
Okay, you need to press your 3 inch by 6.5 inch strip down the length, down the middle of it. So yeah,
on the long way.
Side. And then you take a
ruler, and for me, a 6.5 inch,
right.
A small ruler works easy. It's easy to work with. Okay, and see, I have the loose edges out. Okay.
And you place a 45-degree mark from the ruler along the folded edge.
So on my ruler, the center mark is obviously a 45 degree.
Okay.
And I've got it on the folded edge, and the tip matches right up at the tip.
Right.
Up there, okay? So I'm going to move this over a little so it's not on a line and I can see better. Okay.
And you cut those loose pieces off. They should be small triangles.
So now I have, I don't have a folded edge, I just have a small triangle. Then I just take my ruler or my piece, whichever, and I'm going to turn it, and that new corner that's down, excuse me, down here, I'm going to line up with that point right here and the bottom point with the ruler, and this ruler is long enough to do it.
And then again, you cut off the loose edges.
Oh, well, if I'd actually
Well, it's kind of awkward.
cut all the way. And so now we have a diamond.
Right.
And that is this piece that goes right in here.
Right.
Okay.
So I can also mention that if for some reason you don't have 6.5 inches of length, I actually used on some of mine 6 inches because I had fat quarter and I could get 3 6-inch pieces out of a fat quarter. I cut mine 6 inches and it still works, but my recommendation would be to make every one of those pieces in your block the same size.
Now, I want to tell you, when she was designing this block, some of the thoughts behind it was, we are not asking you to precision piece, and we're trying not to lose the star point. And so she was trying to make this star come out to the edges without it coming right up to the 1/4 inch. So if you have a shorter piece, your star is going to be smaller.
Right.
And does it affect the length of piece 1 if your star's a little small?
I don't really think it will.
I would test it.
Yeah, I don't.
And make sure those sizes I don't have verified, but it will still make a star. It will just be a slightly smaller star.
Yeah, just like I wouldn't vary it by much unless that's what you want.
And so that's a fat quarter friendly change. Right. Now the other thing I would say is that if you cut it wrong somehow, and you cut something slightly too much, you can still use those pieces. You just need the 4 of them to look the same.
Right.
Okay, so it's kind of the same way. You still need this elongated diamond.
The most important part, of course, is you want the width to be the same, because otherwise you're going to get really wonky. The length, that stars don't always have the same tip. That's
true. That's true.
But so this part is the most important part to really be the same. So the width should definitely be the same if you really want a nice looking star.
So your first step after trimming these, and we have, and I'll tell you on the other one, on the length of these pieces 2, 3, and 4. I did my first one, this one, and I was using like strip pieces because I didn't want to commit to that much length. It's way easier if you just commit to that length strip. They're much harder to sew if you have long strips, because then you still don't know till the end where to trim them. So just go for it. It's not that much extra. The first version, we had like another inch on each side, but we've cut them down. Okay, so the first step that you need to do after making these diamonds and deciding how your fabric is going to lay.
Right, which pieces are going where. And
right, you're going to have to put on your first side piece. And I'll tell you, I actually did all, I think when Shelley was testing it, she was doing a triangle at a time. I'm doing all 4 triangles at the same time. I do the same piece on each one. So it's up to you which side you put the piece on first. The only thing that matters, and here's another, like a little cheater thing to tell you, is if you had some pieces that were not quite 6 inches on this first piece, that should be 6 inches, the second piece you add needs to be longer. The first piece can be a little shorter, and and because of the way it trims. The other ones, it's kind of the same.
Right.
But on this first one, because they intersect. So as you can see from the back, this piece I added first was a little bit shorter than this one. And so I just happened to have a strip that was 11 inches, and I thought, oh, can I get 2 out of it? And it works. A 5.5 works, but only if I use that as the first piece that I add. Okay, so what we want you to do, and then the side you put them on, it doesn't really matter except for consideration of placement of the 2 pieces. When you're lining up, when you have the diamond in front of you and the piece, I have to look at it, the piece to your left, this side, because of the angle here, it can be pretty close to lining up even with that top. On this side, because of the angle going this way, and you're folding, and the way you fold it, you need to give a little extra, move that corner up a little bit, at least a 1/4 inch up, just to make sure, or, Shelley and I ripped out a lot of these pieces.
Yeah, if you say you're like, how they put that in the V when you're sewing it, if it lines up with the V, you should be all right, right? Or not?
I'm not going to say that, Shelley, because I have torn out like 5 pieces.
Okay, so what do you say? Use extra.
I just on this side, I would put it up a little bit.
Because there is extra fabric allowed.
Yeah. I think on this side you're fine, but on the other side, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one other thing that we want to talk to you about before we go away, and that's going to be the pressing of the block. And it only matters because you have to commit to the pressing on the first piece you add on.
Right.
And you're going to press on all 4 of your triangles. You're going to press whatever way you press first. You're going to press that way for every piece.
Right.
Okay, so like Shelley can show you on the back of her block that these all press one way. And this one does too. They're all pressing this way. Now, I'll tell you, I had an interesting time explaining this to Shelley, but if you, only because I was complicated how I was saying it, but if you press, I pressed this direction as you guys are looking at it. I can see the presses go this way. And it actually, when I was sewing them later, it did make it a little easier because all the seams that are on the bottom are down, facing down. And so you don't have to worry about twisting a seam.
Right.
So that's the only other thing I would mention about pressing.
If you mess up this pressing thing, it's not the end of the world, but it does kind of help you when you're sewing these triangles, these pieces together
later
when you're
on.
making the block.
So you don't have a big chunk of seam. Okay, so we want you to make your diamond shapes and sew the first piece on your block, and then we will come back with the next instruction because we have a trimming to do just after the first piece, and we will show you that in just a minute. All right, so we have added the first piece on, and like I said, it doesn't matter which side. I just added them to this side, and I've pressed in the direction towards that center diamond. So now we have to do this first trimming, and you only do this after you add the first piece to the diamond. And what we want you to trim off, you actually could sew it without trimming, but if you have a 1/4 inch foot that has a guide, or later on, you kind of want it off because you don't want that extra fabric in that. But you want to trim off this piece down here that sticks up. So Shelley is showing there how she has already trimmed that off. And then when you go to add piece number 2, you're going to just add it right along that edge, this edge, okay? So that's the trimming, the difficult trimming. Okay, at this point. There is trimming later on, but right now that's all of it. Okay, so now the next step, which we just luckily discovered, is that you need to know where to place your next piece after you have added these on, because obviously there's an angle going on the block and you don't want to put it on too big. So that's super simple. You just take and using that diamond as a straight edge, and Shelley's like, well, you can put it in the corner, and the corner makes it more exact, so you're following the diamond. But any ruler, and you can take a pencil, you can take chalk.
Right.
Yeah, Shelley just makes a dot at this end by where she's going to be adding it.
I kind of make it the width of what I think the seam is.
I make it the entire thing because this is going to, when we trim, this is going to be my cut line. So there's no way I'm sewing over that. Mm-hmm. When it's a dark fabric like this, I have a white like wax marker, dressmaker's marker, or you could use chalk, something. Just you just want to mark that, and then the next piece. Oh, I don't have a piece up here.
Oh,
if I did,
any piece, use a loose piece.
Oh, here's a piece. So now I'm gonna set this piece, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna move it a little bit above the edge, and that piece will go on staggered down like that. And so now at this point, we want you to take and build out these triangles so you have the 3 pieces attached to the center on each side of the center triangle. When you get near the end, I'm just going to suggest this with step 4. Shelley actually doesn't even cut the width of her step 4 until she's there at the end. After you have on your piece 3s, put it under the diagonal of the triangle and look to see how wide you need left. The reason why we have set the max width of the pieces at 3 1/4 is if you had fatter pieces, you would end up with no piece.
Right.
And as you can see on mine, my pieces got kind of little at the end. And so they're going to have just a hint of my focus fabric on here because I chose to put that at the end. On this one here, it got small, and I didn't have anything over 3 1/4. But I might have had 2 pieces that were kind of big, and so then it pushes it out. So keep that in mind when you're choosing the width of your pieces if you want all the fabrics to show up. Anything else I'm missing at this point? I
don't think so.
So we want you to take all 4 of your diamond pieces and add 3 pieces on either side. This pieces 2, 3, and 4 to each side of each diamond. And then we're going to come back and talk about trimming that up and the final of it. Definitely you should have already decided whether you're going to randomly put on pieces or however you're going to do them. But So we'll be back in just a minute with that. All right, so we have our triangles all sewn. I have 3 of my 4 up here. Shelley has 1. Okay, so at this point is when you do your major trimming. And so Shelley, I was going to have you put it up higher on here.
Okay.
So this is where you're going to use this 12 and a half inch ruler that you put the blue tape on, which I don't have up here now, or your 9.5 inch, and you're going to use a diagonal. And you're just going to line that up in the corner with the diamond, making sure as I look at it that, here, I'm going to hold it up here like this. So when it's lined up here, you want to make sure that there's fabric. Could you point, Shelley, under, that the diamond, the triangle and the square, the center mark has fabric under it,
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here's
okay. So now you know it's fine size-wise. And then you're just going to set this on your cutting mat, and you're going to trim off these. Oops, here, show what they're going to trim off. I'm holding it.
Okay, trim off this edge and this edge, not the one that's covered.
Right, just do those two corners that are showing.
Right.
And do that on all 4 blocks, okay? So once you have that done, and mine I was going to show, but you can see the idea. So now I have 2 here. I have 2 blocks that I've trimmed. I've taken off those corners. So what we want you to do is to take 2 of these blocks. You're going to do it in pairs, and you're going to sew together this seam that will make half of the block. Now you're turned diagonally, so you're looking at different half. So the one thing about this is that the only measurement that we gave you was this diamond. So this first seam, if you press them like we said, and you cut it all the same size, they should be, the pressing should be opposite, because you pressed everything the same direction and you're kind of going mirror image, so they're kind of face and they lock. So that seam will lock. These ones you're just going to line up as best you can, but they should be going pressed in opposite direction. So should they happen to intersect, they will lock also. So you're going to make 2 where you sew that seam on the center, which on this block, you're sewing together 2 halves like this, sew them together, press them, press the direction.
Yes.
Pick the direction. You're going to do the same on the other half. And then you're going to put these 2 together, and those 2 center seams should lock. Now, it depends on how precise you want to be. Shelley is being pretty precise on hers. She's actually putting those together and sewing from the center out on each one.
Somewhat, it's only because those edges are kind of, stretchy. So if you worry about that and you...
Yeah, she said her bias edge at that triangle of the diamond seemed a little stretchy, so she was being careful with those. But when you put these 2 halves together, once again, this first part should intersect exactly and lock.
Right.
If it doesn't, it's not anything to take apart.
No.
It's just that's kind of a guide that they really, if they were accurately sewn and cut, then those 2 should intersect. So we're gonna trim that outer corner, sew the 2 sides together, and sew the middle together, and we'll be back with our finished block. And I'm gonna say one of us will have a trimmed block and one of us won't.
Okay.
Probably, don't you think?
Yes,
okay.
Why not?
Yeah, so these ones are all trimmed, so you can see trim blocks, but we will have that when we come back.
Okay.
So here is my finished block, and Shelley's block is finished, not trimmed, but we are going to show with the ruler. And before we even show that, I did want to mention that when you're doing, when we talked the last section about lining up your triangles and making that trim, the other thing that I would suggest you do to make sure that you're kind of on track, if you care squaring up that is this center line of your the diagonal line of your ruler. If you put that through the center of the diamond, hitting both the top and the bottom point, then it should be pretty symmetrical.
Right.
Okay. So Shelley, here, show. And on your ruler, Shelley and I like to put lots of pieces of tape, lots of marks.
I know,
our special rulers. but I've got a mark. This is the one that came on the ruler, but I put another one that goes diagonal the other way. And Shelley actually has a ruler that has both.
Make sure I've got it.
So here she's lining up one diagonal down that seam and the other diagonal about down the other. And you can see there's about a 1/4 inch extra right here, and probably
Some
about
places,
a 1/4 inch.
Some places are more, and some places are
Yeah, but if you use the size pieces we said, it's not a ton of extra, but a little bit.
Right.
And it'll trim up looking like this. And so mine, which I did this alternating of my colors in my center, I said to Shelley, I think it looks kind of like a compass point.
It does. It does.
So it's kind of neat. So that's fun to play with. Yeah. All right, so here is our 4-pointed star block, and we will see you back in August.